Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. President Donald Trump ends the week with another court win. This time, a federal judge has cleared the way for a renewed push to enforce a long-standing law that will require everyone in the U.S. illegally to register with the government and carry documentation. We have the details on this program. At a heated school board meeting in Augusta, Maine on Wednesday night, tensions flared as a parent wearing a red MAGA hat clashed with the school board president over the state's trans athletes policy. The parent was asked to leave the meeting. 6 people were dead after a tourist helicopter carrying a family from Spain split in half literally midair and spiraled out of the sky before crashing into the Hudson River on the New Jersey side. We knew it, but now they're admitting it. Ex-NBC anchor Chuck Todd admits that the media was afraid to cover questions about former President Joe Biden's mental acuity during the 2024 race.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So as we wrap up another week, a federal judge handed President Trump another legal win. It's been a good week for Donald Trump overall. He's had a couple of setbacks legally, but overall he's had some good wins this week from both the U.S. Supreme Court and some of the federal judges around the country. This time, the action will clear the way for a renewal of the push to enforce a longstanding law that requires everyone in the U.S. illegally to register with the government and carry the documentation. Now, this is going to be crucial because those who fail to do so can be held accountable. Judge Trevor McFadden, he's a Trump appointee, ruled yesterday that a group challenging the policy did not have standing to sue, meaning the court didn't even get to the substance of the arguments. That decision allows the Trump administration to enforce the plan starting today. The Department of Homeland Security wasted no time. They announced that all undocumented immigrants who've been in the U.S. for more than 30 days now have to register with the federal government. The rule applies to anyone age 14 and older and includes providing fingerprints and a current address. Now, how many people do you think are going to comply with this? In a statement, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said, President Trump and I have a clear message for those in our country illegally. Leave now. If you leave now, you may have the opportunity to return and enjoy our freedom and live the American dream. Ms. Noem also made it clear that the administration intends to enforce all immigration laws on the books, including the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, which requires non-citizens to register and notify the government of any address changes. Violating that law could lead to fines, imprisonment, or both. And illegal immigrants who don't leave voluntarily could face criminal charges. Now, what this is going to allow the Trump administration to do, and ICE agents, and the Department of Homeland Security, basically any law enforcement agency who is enforcing the law, this will allow them to ask anyone for documentation that they have registered with the federal government. If they don't provide the documentation, then they can be apprehended. And this is going to be a crucial tool in the immigration enforcement. Let's take, for example, someone is pulled over for a traffic violation. If I'm understanding this, if the law enforcement officer suspects that they're here illegally, they can ask for the documentation and they'd be required to provide it. If they don't, then they're subject to fines. They're subject to deportation. This move, of course, is the latest part of this much broader effort by the Trump administration to tighten the enforcement, to encourage self-deportations. We heard yesterday that over 5,000 people have started using the new Trump CBP app that assists you in self-deporting. 5,000 and growing. Now, the irony with this, and we talked about this the other day, is Joe Biden had an app that helped you come into the country. Donald Trump canceled that one on his first day in office, now has developed an app that helps you leave the country. What a difference in two different administrations, right? What a difference between two presidents. Joe Biden wanted to make it easy for the illegals to come into our country. Donald Trump knows that they're not supposed to be here, so he's going to try to make it easy for them to leave. The DHS has been running a campaign warning migrants of serious consequences if they stay, and promoting voluntary departure as the safest and the smartest choice. Look, if I were here illegally, I think I'd want to find my way home pretty quickly. I'd want to take advantage of this Trump CVP app to help me get home. I saw an interview the other day of a young man who was here illegally, and he talked about his struggle with what to do, and he claimed that he wanted to go home because he did not want to risk being detained and potentially ending up in prison. But he also talked about how he doesn't quite know how to do that. He's afraid to go to the airport to get on a plane. He's afraid to go to the border and try to go back across the border. So he's like the ideal candidate for this new CBP app that's helping these illegals with the logistics of getting back across the border. Now, interestingly, according to the New York Post, even Canadian snowbirds who have stayed more than 30 days in the U.S. will also have to register. Something like that hasn't been widely enforced in the past, but I got a feeling it probably will be, just to be consistent. Basically, anybody in the country who's not an American citizen and you're here more than 30 days, you got to register. It's just that simple. This isn't the first time the government has tried the registration process. You may remember, those of you old enough, immediately after 9/11 and the attacks, and when we were beefing up our security and we were very much aware of potential terrorists in our country, a similar program was started to where you had to register if you were not an American citizen. Now, I looked this up because I was curious of if this was still being used, if it had been used effectively then. And I learned that the program actually was scrapped just prior to 2016 because it was heavily criticized. Now, I didn't quite understand who had been critical of it, but evidently it was scrapped just prior to Donald Trump being elected president in 2016. The law never went away. The law has always been on the books. No one enforced it. Now, it looks like the Trump team is ready to bring it back in a big way. It looks like the Trump team will, in fact, enforce it because Trump is serious about enforcing our immigration laws. He's not going to sit back and not use a tool in the toolbox if it's there. And this is a good one because, again, how can you argue with that? If you're an illegal, let me rephrase that. If you're in the country and you're not an American citizen and you haven't registered, then you're trying to hide something. Now, a lot of these people who are here, they're probably not going to do this because a lot are probably thinking, well, this is a trick. This is their way of trying to get me to show up and tell them where I live. Well, maybe so. But again, I think the whole reason for this is not necessarily for those who are going to register, but to be able to use the tool against those who do not register. It's just going to give law enforcement, it's going to give them the excuse to ask, all right, you're not an American citizen. Show me your paper. Show me where you're registered. If you didn't register, you're in trouble, buddy. Come with me. If you can't show me the documentation where you registered, letting us know that you're here and you've been here for more than 30 days, I need an explanation. Otherwise, I've got a nice little place for you to stay tonight. Hi, Joey Hudson here. This spring there's a renewed energy and focus on efficiencies, and shaking up unhealthy habits don't serve us well. There's so much chatter about making America great again, but it starts in your home with you being the best, healthiest version of yourself. And PhD Weight Loss is doing their part because for the first time ever, the first 11 callers get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. That is huge. PhD's out to prove that you don't need Big Pharma to reach your goals. It just creates dependency, not long-term change. Dr. Ashley Lucas researched weight loss trends for years and discovered a scientifically proven way to retrain your body to burn fat efficiently without hunger, extreme exercise, or dangerous medications. PhD clients watch their belly fat disappear, their energy skyrocket, cholesterol and blood pressure normalize without starving themselves. I lost over 30 pounds and I've never felt better. So call now and mention promo code Joey for my 2 weeks for free with my program. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen a couple of books published that are tell-all type books about Joe Biden. And we're starting to hear from his own people just how bad he was going into 2024. Former NBC host Chuck Todd sort of piled on yesterday when he admitted that the media was afraid to cover questions about former President Joe Biden's mental acuity during the 2024 race, believing that doing so would benefit his opponent, former President Trump, running against Joe Biden at the time, and that the Biden administration would pretty much just push them out of the way, that the Biden administration would blackball them, if you will. During an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored, the British host asked Mr. Todd why the media seemed reluctant to push much harder on Biden's age at the time, particularly when everybody was seeing it with their own eyes. Good question. Mr. Todd defended the media at first, saying that the American public was able to come to its own conclusions about Biden because of the media's coverage, which he said drew attention to Biden's decline without being overt about it. Why wouldn't you want to be overt about it? If you saw that the man was failing, if you saw that the leader of the free world was not capable of being leader of the free world, why wouldn't you as a media person speak up? Why would you care if you were being overt? The former Meet the Press host said, look, we were subtle. He's using the back staircase. He's not using the front staircase, talking about, of course, the Air Force One, getting on and off Air Force One when Joe Biden suddenly had to start using the lower staircase rather than the traditional staircase at the front of Air Force One, where presidents walk to the top, they turn, they wave, and they board. Joe Biden had to wear special tennis shoes and go on the lower staircase. Todd said, hey, he's not doing any interviews. Was that suspicious? Yes, it was suspicious, he said. But they just brushed it off again. Todd continued. He said, so there was this reluctance to draw the conclusion to say, is he not doing this? And that I agree with, that was held back a lot by the mainstream media. Of course they held it back. NBC held it back. All of the major networks held it back. Except Fox, of course, and Newsmax, who was trying to get the truth out. Todd argued that there were a number of individual members of the media who raised concerns about Biden running for re-election. He cited the Washington Post columnist David Ignatius, who wrote a brutal column urging the president to bow the race in September of 2023. I vaguely remember that. didn't get a whole lot of attention. Todd said, but I understood the argument about the collective on that front. The only thing I can chalk it up to is this, whatever you want to call it, this fear that some members of the media had sometimes that they would be perceived as helping Trump if they somehow diminish Biden. What a crazy argument. You would be helping the American people. You would be supporting your country. You were willing to allow Joe Biden to potentially be elected to another term, knowing he wasn't capable of serving, simply because you didn't want Donald Trump to be in the Oval Office again. Todd continued, he said, and I think this has been the fundamental mistake that many members of the traditional press have done. You think it's a fundamental mistake that they just ignored Joe Biden's condition? He listed the media's push to deplatform Trump from social media after the January 6th Capitol riot as one example of media mistakes. He argued that Trump's First Amendment rights should have been protected and made the case that the media's reputation suffered because of this. And he's right there. He said it looks more obvious today because what he did do, he built his own information ecosystem, and now traditional media is doing what? They're showing up on YouTube. The admission comes, of course, after the release of these two bombshell books this month that revealed Democrats were privately worried about Biden's cognitive decline long before he dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. That they knew it. By the way, I think I told you I have a copy of one of those books and can't wait to get into the weekend this weekend and read it. I've read the first chapter, and it's intriguing already. Can't wait to really just dig in, because we knew this stuff. We knew that Joe Biden wasn't capable, and we knew they were hiding it. Now we're going to find out who was hiding it. We're going to find out who was really running the Oval Office. According to Chris Whipple's new book, Uncharted, now I don't have this one yet, Uncharted, How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History, Representative Nancy Pelosi told a friend that she was startled by Biden's appearance after a White House meeting in May of 2024. Pelosi reportedly said, and according to the book, he was not the same Joe Biden. She couldn't shake the realization that Joe Biden was a shadow of himself. But yet, she apparently supported him initially. Now, the reports are that Nancy Pelosi did lead the effort to get Joe Biden to drop out after his horrible debate appearance, when he just utterly failed, could not put together a sentence in that late June debate with Donald Trump. Here's what I'm anxious to find out, and I hope it's in one of these two books. I want to know who actually convinced Joe Biden to do the debate early, because I'm convinced that someone within his circle wanted him to do that because they knew he wasn't capable, and that might be what it would take to get him out of the race. And so they set him up. They encouraged him to do the debate early. I'm going to be anxious to see just who that person was. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. As we continue today's show, you know, their motto is making life easier. And since 1972, Spink stores have been doing just that since founder Stuart Spinks opened his first gas station at the intersection of Lawrence Road and East Washington Street. Now there's so much more. They're your neighborhood convenience store, car wash, and let's not forget that fried chicken as well. On our guest line today, the CEO and chairman of the board of Spinks, Steve Spinks. Welcome. How are you?
Great, Joey. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. I appreciate your time today. Before we get into the topic, and that's liability insurance and tort reform, it's an issue that is important and been discussed in our legislature this session. Take a minute and talk with us about the family business. You guys have been around the upstate since the early 70s, and you've just become a mainstay. I mean, there's hardly a corner that you pass by that there's not a Spink store there, and it is a family business still. And I'd like for you to just kind of introduce the business to us?
Sure. Dad started the business in 1972 with a single station on the corner of Lawrence Road and East Washington Street. And it was a 3-bay service station back then. And he's grown it steadily since then. And now we're all across South Carolina. And we've got 3 stores in North Carolina, total of 93 convenience stores. And just trying to keep it growing. I've been with the business since 1991 and been CEO since, probably 2010, around in there. Mm-hmm. And so it is a family business. I've been in it since 91. All of my brothers have participated in the business and at various stages of our careers. And so proud to carry it on as best I can.
Was there ever any question that you would not be in the family business?
Oh, yeah. I did not come out of college thinking I would join the family business,
really?
Except for a brief stint. And I was actually thinking I would go on to become a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So which is interesting. We're talking about this today. But I decided not to do that. I worked for Dad for a little while between college and grad school and decided I kind of liked what he was doing. And so I stuck around and went up to Duke and got my MBA. I've been with him ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's something you and I have in common because I always thought that I wanted to be an attorney too. In fact, started the first year of the combined MBA JD program at the University of South Carolina, then ended up in the insurance business after working with the Insurance Study Committee in the state Senate down there. And that was the right decision for me at the time. I don't know that I would have been a good lawyer, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I made the right decision for me and, appreciate how it's all turned out.
Yeah. So there's this issue around tort reform that the South Carolina legislature has been grappling with this entire session. This is something that's been brewing for a couple of years now, so it didn't just happen overnight. But we've seen a number of bars and restaurants close this past year because they just simply can't afford the liquor liability. We've heard stories of small mom and pop type bars and restaurants who maybe have been paying $1,000 and it jumped to $15,000 or $20,000. But it's not just the restaurants and bars that it's affecting, is it? Your business, the convenience stores, you guys have had your own issues with liability insurance as well.
We have. Insurance has gone up across the board, I think, in South Carolina as a result of just our laws, our tort laws, in particular the joint and several aspect of our laws where you can be held responsible for somebody else's mistake. And it's been really burdensome on the hospitality industry here recently. It's been a burden on all of the industries, but in particular, I think the hospitality industry has felt it of recent because of those rates and the way lawyers are approaching filing suits on folks who really aren't 100% at fault or even majority at fault, and leaving people off the jury form so that they can really just go after the biggest pockets. We're one of the few states that still has a law like this.
Yeah. With me today, Steve Spink, CEO, chairman of the board of Spink's Convenience Stores. So we know how it has affected restaurants and bars. Steve, if you would, give me an example of how this has affected convenience stores.
Sure, Joey. So I'll give you an example of something that happened to a friend of mine in my industry. Two guys pulled up to his station, got into an argument, and started fighting with each other, out there at the pump islands. And, one of the guys injured the other one. But my friend, the operator of the gasoline station, ends up getting sued because he didn't provide a safe work environment and or a safe business environment. His employees didn't have anything to do with the fight. The two people that got into the fight weren't really held responsible for their actions, and my friend ended up having to pay for that.
Wow.
That incident.
So I want to be sure I understand this. So you're saying that these two people were on the premises of a convenience store. Mm-hmm. They got into a fight with one another, and the operator was held responsible?
That's right. Yes.
Wow.
They that type of thing happens because right now under our current legal system, you're joint and severally liable. So if you can just show that you're 1% at fault for that, or any chance that you're 1% at fault for that, then you can be held totally responsible for the damages somebody else has done.
Wow.
And what happens often in these cases is the insurance company, rather than going through the courts and risk a jury trial for an even larger verdict, will settle a case like that.
Yeah.
Which in the end just drives up all of our insurance rates.
Sure. Well, and that's what is truly wrong with the system as it is today. It's just too easy for the trial attorneys to have cases like this. I mean, that to me, that's just totally absurd that a convenience store operator would be held responsible for an incident that happened on his premises that he had nothing to do with. That's the poster child of what's wrong with our system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure is. It's we're hopeful that the bill in the House right now addresses a lot of those concerns. It forces that everybody be included on that jury's form, so that a jury can apportion fault amongst all the people that are involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the right way to do things, because I think in our industry, in most businesses, we're fine paying our fair share, and we're fine paying for whatever percent that a jury, an unbiased jury, finds us responsible for.
Yeah.
But to hold us accountable for something that someone else has done, really just it's the height of unfairness.
Yes, exactly.
For me, it's just a matter of basic fairness. We're willing to pay whatever part of the accident we contributed to, but having us pay for other people's mistakes and just the utter lack of personal responsibility and accountability that takes place.
Yeah.
Is just kind of very troubling.
I had Senator Ross Turner on a couple of weeks ago, and of course he's in the insurance business, and he and I were just exchanging ideas with insurance, and he was telling me that Virginia has the lowest ISO ratings of any state, and that Virginia is a state where they don't focus on where the product was purchased. They focus on who consumed it. And
that's right.
and should that not be the way it should be? I mean, that person, she's the person who drank and caused the accident. And to me, we need to be focusing on her and her liability insurance.
Yeah, I would. The way I feel about it is, we're all responsible to take care of ourselves, and it doesn't make sense to hold other people responsible for your actions.
Yes.
Right? We wouldn't do that in any other situation, but we do that when it comes to our legal system.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't it's not right.
Yeah. Yeah. With me today, Steve Spink. So Steve, we've got a few more weeks in the legislative session this year, May the 8th. They're going to have to cram a lot in these next few weeks, but and I'm sure you've spoken with a number of legislators. What is your message to them? What would you like to see them do?
Well, I'd like to see them pass Senate Bill 244. It was a massive effort to get that bill through the Senate. The House, I don't think wants to vote on this session. They've successfully kept tort reform off the docket in the House for a number of years.
Yeah.
And to the point where the Senate had to act first to get a real tort reform bill out and back to the Senate. And we really need the House to pick that up and take a vote on it, so that we can fix this situation.
Yep. So if you're listening today, please call your House member and ask them to take action in the next few weeks, because we're going to see more restaurants and bars potentially close. They can't wait till next year, to next year's session. Some of them can't. So let your representative know that you'd like for them to take action and to support Senate Bill 244. Steve, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time today and appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Joey. I really appreciate what you do. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. As we wrap up this week, on the text line, Phil writes, Joey, I agree that we should buy American. That being said, American quality isn't what it used to be. We're about the same age, so we both have seen a decline. I hope President Trump can revive the American pride that we grew up with. And I agree with that, Phil. We do. We have to make sure that that quality is there. But I think we're capable of it. I think the American worker, I think American manufacturers can get that quality back. And yes, we may have to pay a little more for it. But again, as I've said many times this week, as we've discussed tariffs quite a lot, it's been the week of tariffs, that we may have to pay a little more in order to support that American manufacturer and that American worker. But which would you rather do? Pay a little more for a product, pay a little more for a washing machine, for example, with American quality that's going to last, rather than paying less for a cheaper version of a washing machine made in China and allow them to dictate to us what we're going to do and what we can't do. Appreciate your text. Veterans heckled Governor Tim Walz for stolen valor claims during remarks at a veterans rally at the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul this week. As Walz welcomed the veterans to the Capitol, it was the annual Veterans Day on the Hill, he was met by a fiery crowd who called him a coward and criticized him for sympathizing with China, according to footage captured by KSTP. Here's what they had to say.
Welcome to the Capitol. It's great that you're Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Let me finish and roll. Hey, there's some passion in the...
So you could hear Governor Walz there at the end saying there's passion in the room. No, Governor, there was anger in the room. Those people were angry with you. So here's what they were saying, because it was kind of loud. It was kind of echoey in that big room. Some veterans were holding American flags, and when the governor started speaking, they started yelling, "Coward, you sympathize with the Chinese. Take action," they said, as they shouted at the Democrat governor as he tried to welcome him to the Capitol. Walz replied as he tried to ease tensions while another veteran shouted, "Shut your mouth," Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Whoa, hey, there's some passion in the building, which is a good thing, he said. Footage of the hecklers disrupting Walz's remarks has gone viral on social media. You can imagine some of the conservative influencers and conservative podcasters like yours truly and radio host, the heyday they've had with this. He faced accusations, of course, of stolen valor during the 2024 presidential election for inconsistencies describing his military service. Walz is a veteran, having served in the Minnesota National Guard's 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery, after transferring from the Nebraska National Guard in 1996. He retired as a Master Sergeant in 2005. The former vice presidential candidate was accused of stolen valor for retiring literally months before his battalion deployed to Iraq as war raged in the Middle East following the 9/11 attacks. Mr. Walz put in his papers for retirement about 5 months before his battalion received deployment orders, according to the Minnesota National Guard. Walz was also discovered to have claimed several times that he retired as a command sergeant major, which is not accurate. He reverted to his previous rank upon retirement because he did not complete the necessary corresponding coursework, according to the National Guard. Now, Walz's decade-long ties to China also came to light when Vice President Kamala Harris picked him as her running mate last summer. He worked briefly in China as a teacher. He traveled to Guangdong in 1989 for a teaching abroad program to teach English and American history. Walz was initially believed to have made dozens of trips to China over his lifetime, but a campaign spokesperson later tried to walk that number back and said he had made approximately 15 visits to China. That's more than I've made. Is it more than you've made? 15 visits, that's a lot of business in China. He also boasted about Minnesota hosting several top Chinese leaders in a letter that was unearthed by Fox News Digital and published. The 2024 campaign trail brought Walz in his inconsistencies regarding his background into the national conversation, something he hadn't expected, something he didn't count on. The governor said he misspoke when he claimed that he visited Hong Kong during the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest and incorrectly claimed that his family used in vitro fertilization. Walz laughed off the missteps, calling himself a knucklehead. How do you misspeak about visiting Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protest? How would you just mistakenly think you were there when you actually weren't? I mean, really. I mean, I get sometimes we all make mistakes. Sometimes we don't remember the correct dates or maybe the number of days we were at a certain place. But to forget that you were not in Hong Kong at a very troubling time in their history, that's a little far-fetched. The Commander's Task Force and Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers hosted the rally in the rotunda of the Capitol where the boos erupted this past Wednesday. The annual event is designed to streamline communications between Minnesota elected officials and veterans. Well, I would say that the communications were open. Probably a little more open than the governor wanted. Once the excitement settled, Governor Walz committed to upholding budget protections for veterans during his remarks. In light of Minnesota budget negotiations under the Department of Government Efficiency leading efforts to cut spending and laying off federal employees at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And yes, DOJ has said that there are parts of the Veterans Affairs that can be cut, but not services, and nothing that's going to affect the services. This is just the typical Democrat playbook. They're doing it with Social Security. They're doing it with other social services, doing it with education. Oh, if we close down the Department of Education, our kids aren't going to be educated. Kids with special needs aren't going to get what they need. Of course they are. They're probably just going to get it better because we're not going to be wasting millions, if not billions of dollars on bureaucrats' salaries. That's just more money that can go back to the local board of education, to the state superintendent of education's budget for them to spend at the local level, which they know how to spend it a lot better than the federal bureaucrats do. How did I get off on that from Tim Walz? Tim Walz is a knucklehead. When he called himself a knucklehead, he is a knucklehead. I honestly don't know how Kamala Harris chose him as her running mate. I got to believe that even in the Democrat pool of candidates, there had to be better people than Tim Walz, because he was, as bad as Kamala Harris was, Tim Walz was even worse. Talk about Dumb and Dumber. A new movie could be made with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, just covering them on the campaign trail. That was truly Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumbest. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.